In old age, never allow these 6 things from your children, because if you do, they could quietly destroy your peace, your dignity, and even your future. That may sound harsh, but it's the truth. So many loving, well-meaning parents, mothers and fathers who gave their lives to raising their kids find themselves in painful situations as they grow older. Not because their children are bad people, but because somewhere along the way, the boundaries disappeared. And when there are no boundaries, love starts to hurt. It turns into guilt, obligation, exhaustion. But you are still a whole person with your own needs, your own space, your own time. And the older you get, the more important it becomes to protect those things. Let's talk about the first behavior you should never tolerate. It's called disrespect. And no, it's not always loud. It doesn't always look like shouting or name-calling. In fact, the most painful disrespect often shows up quietly. A sarcastic comment, a rolled eye when you share a story, a laugh when you express an opinion. Your son tells you, "That's not how things work anymore, Mom," and the room chuckles, and you smile too, but deep down it stings. You feel small, like your experiences, your memories, your wisdom don't matter anymore. You're made to feel outdated, silly, irrelevant, and you start to wonder, is it just me? Am I too sensitive? No, you are not. You're simply asking for the most basic thing any person deserves, respect. Respect for your voice, for your life experience, for the years you've lived and the lessons you've learned. You may have carried these children in your arms, sacrificed sleep, money, your own dreams for them. So it is not too much to expect that when you speak, they listen. When you share, they don't mock. When you are in the room, you are treated like someone who matters. That is not weakness. That is dignity. And if it's not happening, you have every right to speak up. Not in the middle of a crowded dinner table, not in the heat of the moment, but in a quiet, private moment when emotions are calm. You can say something as simple as, "When you laugh at my stories, it makes me feel like they don't matter. Like I don't matter." That one sentence can shift everything. And if it doesn't, if the dismissiveness continues, it's okay to step away. To say, "I won't keep sitting through conversations that make me feel invisible." Because your presence should never feel like a burden. Now let's move to the second behavior that can quietly destroy your well-being, financial dependence. This one is hard, because it always begins with love. You want to help. You want to see your child stable, safe, supported. So, you lend them money for a car repair, help with rent, pay for a course, cover their credit card bill, just this once. But somehow, it keeps happening. The phone rings. "Mom, I just need a little help this month." "Dad, I promise this is the last time." And you keep giving. Not because you're naive, but because you care. But here's the truth. Every time you pull money from your savings, from your retirement, from the small garden you've carefully planted for your later years, you are slowly sacrificing your own stability. You're giving away the comfort you worked a lifetime to build. You may have spent years budgeting, saving, going without certain luxuries to ensure you could one day rest. That day is now. You've earned it. But if that money is constantly leaving your hands and going to a grown child who should be standing on their own 2 feet, something is out of balance. Yes, it's okay to help occasionally. Yes, it's okay to say yes when it feels right. But when it becomes a pattern, when they're well into their 30s or 40s and still leaning on your wallet instead of learning to budget, plan, and provide for themselves, it's time to reevaluate. There is no shame in saying, "I can't continue to help in the same way." You can offer alternatives. "I'll help with your job search. Let's sit down and create a budget together. I'll match what you save, but I won't cover the whole thing anymore." These boundaries are not punishments. They are stepping stones toward your child's independence and your own peace of mind. Because the truth is, giving too much financially can lead to resentment, stress, and even health problems. Your retirement is not their backup plan. It is your time. You've already given them the tools to build their lives. Now it's time to protect yours. What many older adults don't realize until it's too late is that money isn't just about dollars. It's about energy. Every check you write that drains your future is a piece of energy, of hope, of rest that you lose. And you don't owe your adult children your peace just because you're their parent. What you owe yourself is balance, clarity, a future where you don't lie awake at night wondering how you'll afford medical care or groceries because you're still paying off someone else's mistakes. And if you're already deep in that pattern, it's not too late to change it. Start small. Be gentle but firm. Tell them, I love you, but I need to prioritize my own stability now. That's not cruelty. That's courage. We've talked about disrespect and money, two major sources of pain for older parents. But they're just the beginning. Because when you start standing up for yourself, something else often creeps in. Something even trickier to spot, because it hides behind concern or sadness or silence. And that's what we'll talk about next. The third thing you must never allow from your children in old age is emotional manipulation. And this one is sneaky because it often sounds like love. It looks like guilt. It feels like pressure. And it always makes you question your right to say no. Maybe it's something as simple as telling your daughter you can't babysit the grandkids this weekend because you have plans with friends. You're finally doing something for yourself, and you feel excited. But then she replies with a heavy sigh and says, I guess I'll just have to cancel my job interview. I thought you understood how important this was to me. Suddenly, all the joy drains out of your plans. You feel selfish, guilty, ashamed. Or maybe your son says, after everything I've been through, I thought you'd be more supportive, just because you said no to another loan. And now, instead of standing firm in your decision, you're second-guessing yourself. That's what emotional manipulation does. It turns your no into a weapon. It makes you feel like you're failing them, when really, you're just trying to take care of yourself for once. And here's what's hard to hear, but necessary. Sometimes the people using guilt don't even realize they're doing it. They've just learned that if they press the right buttons, if they pout or cry, or stay silent long enough, you'll cave. They know your soft spots. They know how much you love them. And without meaning to, they've started using that love as a tool. But love is not an obligation. It is not guilt. It is not giving in because you're too afraid to be seen as difficult or uncaring. You can love your children deeply and still say no. You can be a good parent and still set boundaries. You are allowed to protect your peace, even if it disappoints someone else. So what can you do when you feel that emotional pressure creeping in? First, pause. You don't have to answer right away. You can say, let me think about that, and give yourself time to breathe, to reflect, to check in with your own needs. That one sentence gives you power. It buys you space. And second, when you do respond, speak with love, but also with clarity. Say something like, I notice that when I say no, you often make me feel guilty. I love you, but I need to be able to make decisions for myself without being pressured. Will that feel uncomfortable? Probably. Will it create tension at first? Maybe. But healthy relationships aren't built on silence. They're built on honesty, on mutual respect. And if your children truly love you, they'll listen. Maybe not immediately, maybe not perfectly, but they will learn over time that your boundaries are not rejection, they are protection for both of you. And remember this, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to explain every detail. You don't need to defend your time, your energy, your choices. You can simply say, no, I can't do that right now, and that's enough. The people who love you will respect it. The people who don't, well, they're the ones who needed the boundary most. Let's talk about the fourth thing you should never allow from your adult children. And that's when your time, your home, and your freedom become their backup plan. Maybe this sounds familiar. You finally sit down to read your book, enjoy a cup of tea, or catch up on your favorite show, and the phone rings. Can you come over right now? I need someone to watch the kids. Or worse, they just show up at your door without calling, expecting dinner, laundry, attention, as if it's still 20 years ago and you're running the family home full-time. Now let's be clear, being needed can feel good. Spending time with family, helping your grandchildren, being part of their lives, that's a beautiful thing. But when that time is always on their schedule, when your own plans are pushed aside again and again, when your home becomes a revolving door that serves everyone but you, something's wrong. Because slowly, you start to disappear. your hobbies, your friendships, your moments of peace all shrink to fit into everyone else's needs. And that's not okay. You deserve rest. You deserve space. You deserve the freedom to say, this weekend, I need time for myself. You are not being selfish. You are being responsible with your energy, with your mental health, with your joy. So, how do you start taking your time back? You begin by setting expectations. Let your children know, gently, kindly, that unplanned visits don't work for you anymore. That you need to notice. That your schedule matters too. You might say something like, I love spending time with the kids, but I need a few days' notice so I can plan around my own needs. Or, I can help on Saturday afternoon, but I won't be able to stay the whole day. That's not cold. That's honest. And it's okay to be honest about your limits. As we get older, our energy shifts. We may not be able to do what we used to do, and we shouldn't have to. If you feel exhausted after a full day of running around, it's okay to say, I can help for a few hours, but I'll need the rest of the day to rest. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And if they push back, if they try to guilt you, that's just more proof that the boundary is necessary. Here's something I want you to remember every single day. You don't have to earn your rest. You don't have to prove your usefulness to deserve peace. You've already done more than enough. You've given your time, your love, your strength. And now, it's your turn to receive, to relax, to say, today is for me. And the people who truly value you will understand. They will adjust. They will grow. Because boundaries don't damage relationships, they reveal them. They show you who is willing to meet you with respect, and who only values your yes. What we're talking about here isn't about creating distance between you and your children. It's about restoring balance, about reclaiming the parts of your life that have been quietly taken piece by piece, favor by favor, drop in by drop in. It's about saying, I love you, but I matter too. And that leads us to the final behavior, one that we'll dive into next. Because sometimes, the real hurt doesn't come from what they ask you to do. It comes from what they don't do when you need them most. The fifth behavior you must never allow from your children in your later years is neglect, especially emotional neglect. Because sometimes, what hurts the most isn't what they say to you. It's what they don't say. It's what they don't do. It's the silence when you need them most. Maybe you've been recovering from surgery, or dealing with a hard loss, or even just needing a hand carrying groceries into the house. You're not asking for the world. You're not asking for them to drop everything. But you expected a phone call, a visit, a small sign that someone remembered that you, too, have needs. That someone cares that you're still here. And when that care never comes, it doesn't just feel like forgetfulness. It feels like being invisible. This is one of the most heartbreaking realities that older adults face, the moment you realize the roles have shifted, and yet the support hasn't come full circle. You were the reliable one, the caregiver, the constant. You showed up day after day, year after year. You were there for the fevers, the broken hearts, the bad grades, the scraped knees, the unpaid rent. You showed up for them in their worst moments. And now, when you're going through yours, no one is showing up for you. And what's even harder, you don't want to beg. You don't want to be a burden. You don't want to have to explain why you matter. So instead, you stay quiet. You say nothing. You wait by the phone. You tell yourself they're busy. They have kids. They have their own lives. And maybe they do. But here's the truth. Love is not just what you give. It's what gets returned. And you deserve to be seen, supported, and acknowledged. Not because you raised them, not because you gave them everything, but because you are still here and your life still matters. So how do you deal with neglect without feeling like you're chasing attention? You start with honesty, not hints, not guilt, not silence, but clear, direct honesty. You might say, I've been feeling a bit alone lately. It would mean a lot to get a phone call now and then. Or, I have a doctor's appointment next week, and I'd really appreciate someone coming with me. That's not needy. That's vulnerable. That's human. And sometimes, that's exactly what it takes to cut through the noise of their busy lives and make your needs visible again. And yes, there's a difference between your preferences and your real needs. Wanting a weekly call is different than needing someone there after a fall or when you're recovering from illness. But both still matter. Because even your preferences, your desire for connection, for company, for a shared meal or a laugh, they are part of what makes you feel alive. And you don't have to apologize for wanting to feel alive. But what if they still don't come through? What if the pattern continues and the silence stretches on? That's when it's time to shift your energy. You start giving more of your emotional space, not to the people who repeatedly forget you, but to the ones who show up. Maybe that's a neighbor who checks in every morning. Maybe it's a friend from church or someone you met at a community class. Maybe it's your niece who always asks how you're doing, even if she lives far away. These people, no matter how small their gestures may seem, are part of your real support circle. And realignment isn't rejection. It's not turning your back on your children. It's turning toward yourself. It's saying, I'm not going to keep pouring my love into places that refuse to receive it. You're not closing a door. You're just not waiting by it anymore. You are shifting your light to where it is seen and valued. And this brings us to something closely connected to neglect, constant criticism, a behavior that often disguises itself as care, but leaves you feeling like a child in your own life. Maybe you've told your children you want to move, downsize, live closer to the coast, and immediately you're met with, you can't sell the house. That's where we grew up. Or maybe you're thinking of taking a painting class or even trying online dating, and they look at you like you've lost your mind. Are you sure that's safe? Is it a little soon, they say, and suddenly your excitement turns into embarrassment. It's subtle, it's patronizing, and it's wrong. Because here's the truth, they don't get to decide how you live your life. Not now, not ever. You've earned your independence, not just on paper, but in your soul. You've lived decades. You've made mistakes and come through them. You've loved and lost and started over. You've built a life with your own hands. And you don't need permission to live it how you want to. So when the criticism comes, masked as worry or concern, you can listen once. You can consider their opinion, but you don't have to absorb it. You can say, thank you, but I've thought this through. I'm happy with my choice. You don't need to argue. You don't need to defend. You're not on trial. You're not their project to manage. And remember this, sometimes their criticism has nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's about their own fear, their discomfort with change, their own aging, their worry about losing control. They may not even realize they're projecting, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it. You can keep certain decisions private. You don't have to share every move you make, not because you're hiding, but because you are protecting your peace. That is your right. You have the right to build a life that fits who you are now, not just who they want you to be. You have the right to find joy, to try new things, to take risks, to fall in love, to start again, even at 70, 80, or 90. Because your story isn't over, not even close. And when the criticism comes, I want you to remember this. You are not too old. You are not too late. And you are not living for someone else's approval. You are living for yourself. Finally, there's one more behavior that, although quieter than criticism, can be just as damaging. It's something many older parents don't even notice until it's already become a pattern. Being expected to always give care, but never receive it in return. It starts with a simple request. Can you help with the baby while I go back to work? Or can you move closer so you can help with school pickups? At first, it feels good to be needed. You love your grandkids. You want to help your children. You feel a sense of purpose again. But then the requests keep coming. Suddenly, what started as one afternoon a week turns into 3, then 5. Before you know it, your retirement begins to feel like a second full-time job. But what happens when you need help? When you try to talk about planning for your own care, your health, your future, suddenly everyone is too busy or brushes it off. Don't worry about that now, they say. Or they change the subject. And you're left with a growing fear that when the time comes, you'll be facing it alone. That is not fair. And it is not sustainable. You are not just a helper. You are not just a babysitter, a driver, or a free cleaning service. You are a whole person with a body that tires, a heart that needs rest, and a future that deserves to be planned for with care. If you enjoy helping with the grandchildren, that's beautiful. But if you find yourself overwhelmed, exhausted, or resentful, it's time to say, I need to reclaim some of this time for myself. That sentence is not selfish. It's survival. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to set limits. You are allowed to say, I can help once a week, but not every day. Or, I need a few mornings each week just for me. Your time has value. Your energy has value. And just because you're retired doesn't mean you're endlessly available. And when it comes to your own care, don't wait for a crisis to start the conversation. Sit down and say it clearly. I'd like us to make a plan in case I ever need help in the future. Talk about where you might live, who will help with medical decisions, how finances will be handled. These may feel like uncomfortable topics, but having clarity now prevents chaos later. And if your children avoid these conversations or don't want to think about your future needs, that doesn't mean you have to stay silent. It means you start planning with the people who are willing. That might be a friend, a lawyer, a care planner, a neighbor, a trusted professional. You don't have to wait for your family's permission to protect your future. You don't need their approval to build a plan that gives you peace of mind. Because here's what's at stake: your independence, your safety, your dignity. And you've spent too many years caring for everyone else to neglect yourself now. In fact, putting these things in writing, how often you're willing to help, who you want making decisions if something happens, where your resources are, this is one of the kindest things you can do for both yourself and your family. It takes away the guesswork. It removes the tension. It ensures that your voice is still heard even when you're not in the room. So let's take a breath together now and look back at everything we've talked about. In old age, never allow disrespect, because every time someone talks down to you, interrupts you, or mocks your stories, they chip away at your confidence. And you deserve to be heard. Never allow constant financial dependence, because if you drain your retirement helping someone who refuses to stand on their own, you're sacrificing your safety for their comfort. Never allow emotional manipulation, because guilt is not love, and you are allowed to say no without apologizing. Never allow your time and space to be used without boundaries, because you've earned your rest, and your home is not a 24/7 convenience store. And never allow neglect, because when you are in need, your children should show up. Love includes presence, care, a willingness to support the one who once supported everyone else. You are not asking for too much. You are not being difficult. You are not being selfish. You are simply choosing dignity. And if your children don't yet understand that, it's okay to teach them. With kindness, yes. With love, always. But also with strength. Because setting a boundary is not rejection. It is instruction. It is saying, this is how I deserve to be treated. It is reminding the world, and maybe even yourself, that you still matter. You are not just a parent or a grandparent. You are not just a helper or a bank or a storage unit or a safety net. You are a human being with dreams, with value, with years left to live fully, deeply, and unapologetically. And if no one else says this to you today, let me be the one. You have permission to reclaim your life, to protect your peace, to rediscover your joy, to live on your own terms. You are not too old to start again. You are not too late to speak up. And you are certainly not done. So if this message spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to share in the comments. I choose dignity. Not just as a phrase, but as a promise to yourself. And if you'd like more videos like this, gentle, honest, empowering messages for this season of your life, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click the bell so you'll be the first to know when something new arrives just for you. Because you are not alone. You are not forgotten. And you are far from finished. We'll talk again soon. Until then, take care of yourself. You're worth it.